We're going to live with our eldest son and his wife, so you need to leave. I was stunned by Mike's words. As if to add insult to injury, even Lisa began to berate me.
Yeah, right. Get out because you're in the way. You freaking freeloader.
I was left speechless. What's with these people? Don't they know their place? They better watch out. That's all I could think of in the moment. Oh, I get it. My feelings were one-sided. Mike doesn't care about me at all. That's why he can say such things to me without flinching. Why did I even put up with this? I should have just divorced him without a second thought. Then I wouldn't have had to feel this miserable. Oh, I can't take it anymore. By any means necessary, I'll make sure they understand where I stand. With that resolve, I found myself letting out a forced laugh. My name is Jennifer Wilson. I'm a 52-year-old working as a full-time employee at a certain food manufacturing company. Being a full-timer at this age, some people mistakenly think I'm single. But I'm not. I married Mike in my 20s and soon after, we had our son, Daniel. Now, Daniel is all grown up and even married. So now, it's just Mike, his mother Martha, and me living happily together. But that's not to say we don't have our issues. Martha is old and her legs aren't what they used to be. I often find myself having to help her. But Mike just turns a blind eye. She's your mother, isn't she? Don't you think you should help her out? When I asked him this, Mike just looked the other way. I wish he'd care more about his family. I've been feeling this way more and more recently. Mike is a graphic designer. He's independent now, but he used to work in the creative department of an ad agency. I met Mike when he was still with the agency. Is there anything you'd like to discuss? Mike, who had come to my company for work, asked me that. There's a little thing here. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't be butting in since I'm not an expert. No, ads aren't just for professionals. Your input is valuable. Mike kindly reassured me. He seemed like such a gentle person. That was my impression of him back then. Later, as we communicated through work, Mike asked me out. Of course, I accepted, and eventually, we got married. But about 10 years into our marriage, Mike said, I'm thinking of quitting my job and going solo. You think you can make it on your own? Even after getting married, I continued working. So, we've had a comfortable life. But by this time, our son Daniel, born shortly after our marriage, was in upper elementary school. Things are fine now, but soon we'll have to spend more on things like tutoring. Besides, I'm worried that Mike or I might not be able to work anymore. With these thoughts, I couldn't understand why Mike would want to give up his current stability. That's why I responded the way I did. I'll get work from my current company. Plus, you're doing a side job. Huh? A side job? You used to go to the office, but now you're working from home, right? Actually, I switched to remote work after our marriage. Of course, to spend more time at home and not neglect the household chores. There was an opening in managing the company's online store, which worked out well for me. Yet, Mike seemed to think I had quit my job and was just doing some sort of side job. It's not a side job, I just switched to working from home. Don't put on airs. Even a side job is a respectable job. I tried to explain several times, but Mike wouldn't listen. The discussion ended with Mike's misunderstanding. In the end, we discussed several times, but Mike never changed his opinion. Eventually, Mike quit his job and went independent. I was filled with anxiety. But contrary to my worries, his work seemed to be going well. He looked healthier and, above all, more relaxed. Things seem to be going well. Yeah, folks from my previous job are giving me work, and I can spend time with Daniel on my days off. It's fantastic. That's all good news. I felt relieved. But a few years later, another issue arose. I brought it up to Mike. What? You want to put my mom in a nursing home? Your mother said she wants to because she's getting weaker. What do you mean? I struggled to respond to Mike's confrontational tone. Of course, I'd love to take care of Martha. But with household chores and work, it's not that simple. Daniel is also in middle school now, soon preparing for high school. It's a critical time for him in many ways, so I can't just focus on Martha. I explained all of this to Mike. However, he began to grumble. You gonna abandon my mom? It's not like that, but Martha said dash.
It's exactly like that. If it's that tough, just quit your side job.
I was at a loss for words. Right now, my salary is the main support for our household. Mike contributes too, but it's just a small portion. So, if I quit, we won't be able to sustain our lives. However, telling this truth to Mike seemed impossible. His pride is too high. If he knew I earned more, he'd probably sulk or maybe even leave. Then, I wouldn't be able to support Daniel and Martha by myself. That's why I couldn't say anything. Ultimately, our discussion ended without a resolution. On another note, even if we didn't put Martha in a care facility, it didn't mean more workload for me. Yes, Martha's getting weaker. Yet, she can manage most things on her own, and I seldom need to assist her. She can even cook if she's sitting. Having Martha at home to help with the chores was actually more convenient for me. Time flew, and soon Daniel went to college. And left the house. My load lightened, and gradually, I had more time to spend with Martha. Then, one weekend, Martha asked me to go shopping with her. So, I asked Mike to drive. Hey, can you drive me? I'm gonna go shopping with Martha. Sorry, I've got work today. Looking over, Mike was wearing a suit. But something seemed off. Hey, what's up with that suit? Oh, I bought it. It was a bit pricey, but I figured I'm a CEO now and should dress the part. Mike responded like that. I understood where he was coming from. But Mike started his company a long time ago. It feels a bit out of the blue now. I recalled an article I read online once that said a sudden change in clothing might indicate someone's having an affair. But I had no proof. Reluctantly, I saw Mike off. Later, I went out with Martha by cab, but I couldn't get Mike off my mind all day. Is he really having an affair? Since then, I started doubting Mike. I thought I'd confront Mike whenever I had a chance. I spent my days thinking about it. But Mike was very careful. Time just keeps on ticking by. Soon, Daniel informed us that he got a job and eventually shared news about his marriage. But I still couldn't find any proof of Mike's affair. I couldn't find any evidence of his affair, but with Daniel getting married, maybe it's okay to just get a normal divorce. I began to think that way. One night, Martha went to the bathroom and hurt her foot. Thankfully, it wasn't severe. But she was shocked and said, I think I should move to a care facility. And I have a favor to ask. The situation was entirely different than before. If I divorced, Martha might be left to fend for herself. Thinking this, I couldn't deny Martha's request. So, I obliged. This was about 6 months ago. Since then, I visit Martha every weekend. I can't seem to divorce because I'm too worried about Martha. I murmured on my way home. I'm back. Hey, Mom, welcome back. It was Daniel. Next to him was his wife, Lisa.
We've been waiting for you, Martha.
Why were Daniel and Lisa here? I was puzzled and asked Daniel. Daniel? Why are you here at home?
Well,
just when Daniel was about to answer, Mike appeared from behind him. He said, You've been so indifferent. I thought of divorcing you, that's why I called them here. What do you mean?
It's about my mom. You've abandoned your duties as a wife.
Mike shouted. I was taken aback. I tried to help Martha, but before I could finish, Mike cut me off.
Don't make excuses. From today, I'm gonna live with my eldest son and his wife. You should leave.
I was stunned at Mike's words. To make things worse, Lisa began to scold me.
That's right, just leave. You're such a leech.
I was speechless. In my mind, I thought,
They should know their place.
Better brace yourself. In the spur of the moment, those were the only words that came to mind. So, all this while, my feelings were one-sided. Mike never really cared for me. That's why he could say all this without hesitating. Why did I put up with all of this? I should have just divorced without giving it a second thought. I wouldn't have felt this miserable. Oh man, I'm done for. No matter what, I have to make my position clear. The moment I made up my mind, a sarcastic laugh escaped my lips. Fine, I'll leave, I said as I walked past the three of them. I headed straight to my room. All I needed were some clothes and my work laptop. I also grabbed my bank book and a few valuables. I stuffed them into a travel bag.
Are you really gonna divorce?
Yeah, of course. I swiftly grabbed my bag. Then, after a moment of thought, I said to Mike,
You know, I'll divorce you amicably for $10,000. If you don't want that, I can get a lawyer and make it messy. It feels a bit cheap, considering the emotional damage he's done. But right now, I don't have the energy to fight with Mike. That's why I purposefully offered terms favorable to him. Why should I pay you anything? Because you've pushed me to the edge mentally. But still. I stared hard at Mike as he started to speak. Then, with a smirk, I told him. So, should we involve lawyers? If you've been cheating, $10,000 won't cut it. What? At least $30,000. If you've got nothing to hide, that should be okay, right? Given Mike's nature, I knew he'd opt for the former. In a way, it was a risky gamble. Mike gritted his teeth in frustration. Seeing his reaction, I became certain. He definitely cheated. But I couldn't gather any evidence. So, I had to pretend I had some just to corner Mike even a little. What will it be? If we get lawyers, I'll also claim damages for emotional distress inflicted on your lover, okay? Well, I really don't want to upset Martha, your mother. So, I don't want any complications. Hearing my words, Mike looked dejected. Then, begrudgingly, he replied. Fine. I'll pay the $10,000 by the end of this week. All right. I'll come by this weekend and we can discuss the divorce. I smiled and walked past Mike. Then, I left the house. I headed to a nearby cafe and started looking for an apartment I could move into immediately. After some searching, all I could find were weekly rentals. This will do for now. I reluctantly signed a lease for a weekly apartment and decided to stay there for the time being. And on the weekend, I headed to Mike's family home where he lives. When I rang the doorbell, Lisa poked her head out. Hey, what brings you here? I came to get some of my stuff. Plus, there's the matter of the divorce and some other things. Oh, is that so? Lisa snorted dismissively. I couldn't help but wonder, why did Daniel ever marry a girl like this? I just couldn't help but wonder. But setting that aside, as I entered, Mike was waiting inside. There was an envelope on the table. There's alimony inside. Understood. Inside the envelope, there were stacks amounting to $10,000. I checked it and put it in my bag. Well, I'll have the movers take out the rest of my stuff from the room. Do as you please. Mike seemed to be sulking. Even though he was the one who wanted the divorce, I wonder what he's so upset about? I carried on with the move, puzzled. Eventually, when the move was done, I handed Mike a bank book. This is the bank book for the account where you'll deposit the living expenses. You used to give it to me, but now you'll have to deposit it yourself. I get it. Mike grabbed the bank book as if snatching it away. I couldn't help but think he acted like a child. Afterwards, I went to the living room where Daniel and Lisa were. I need to talk to both of you. What is it? I don't really want to talk though. Just take this. As I took out the bank book, Lisa's eyes lit up. Wait, are you giving me money? No, this is the bank book for the living expenses account. Oh! Lisa looked clearly disappointed. Use it to manage the living expenses you receive from Daniel. Geez, always fussing over small things. Lisa muttered under her breath. I pretended I didn't hear and told her. You'll be in charge of managing the living expenses for the family, including Mike. Got it? Yeah. Lisa replied, sounding rather annoyed. I sighed and left the room. I had given them the bank book for living expenses. Now I had no ties to Mike and his family. I felt somewhat relieved. Just a few days after that exchange, I was working in my room when my phone unexpectedly rang. Who's calling at this busy hour? Sighing, I picked up my phone. The screen displayed Daniel's name. Isn't he working right now? I checked the time. It was just past 10 a.m. It was too early for a lunch break, so maybe something urgent came up? With various thoughts running through my mind, I answered the call. Hello? What's up, Daniel? Mom! Where are you? I'm at home, what's wrong? As I replied, Daniel raised his voice even louder. The account's empty! What's going on? I momentarily pulled my phone away due to the loudness. I quickly put it back to my ear and asked, You mean the living expenses account I gave you? Of course! Why is it empty? How are we supposed to live like this? That makes sense. I had given it to him with a zero balance. After all, the funds were from my salary. So, there's no obligation for me to leave any money in it. Thinking that, I replied to Daniel. Did you not deposit the living expenses? I asked, and Daniel mumbled, searching for words. Strange, what's going on? I pressed him again. Didn't you put in the money for living expenses? I didn't. I thought Mom had deposited it. Why would I deposit money? I'm not living with you guys. At my words, Daniel fell silent. I continued, trying to reason with him. I told Lisa, didn't I? To deposit the money you gave her for living expenses. Well, yeah, but it's not just about putting your paycheck into the household. What's so hard about it? Just then, Daniel whispered in a low voice. Because. What? What did you say? I was fired. I don't have a salary. Daniel raised his voice. What? Fired? Yeah. The truth is. Daniel began explaining why he moved back to his family home. A little while before Daniel moved back, he had made a major mistake at work. A single mistake wouldn't normally get someone fired. But Daniel tried to pin the blame on one of his subordinates. If the mistake came to light, he wouldn't get promoted. Being demoted would be embarrassing. It seemed he blamed someone else out of self-preservation. However, his deception was easily uncovered. And he was forced to resign. Don't you have a severance package? Or unemployment benefits? It's all gone. I've spent everything. After quitting, he seemed to have been living off his savings. He had unemployment benefits, so life was easier than he had anticipated. He should have looked for a new job during that time. But Daniel did nothing, thinking he'd easily find another job due to his skills. He wasted time hanging out with Lisa. By the time he began job hunting, no one would hire him. It was then that Mike offered to let him move in. I came thinking I'd live off Dad's money, but Dad keeps saying he's broke. That's unfortunate. Listen, Mom, could you just transfer some money to my account? Just for this month? Daniel pleaded with me. I told him. You can't trick me with that. It's not a joke. I'm serious. A joke? No, it's payback. You guys kicked me out, didn't you? At that, Daniel was momentarily speechless. But he quickly retorted. It was Lisa and Dad who did that. I had nothing to do with it. By not stopping them, you're just as guilty. Reflect on that with the two of them. Goodbye. I hung up the phone. I blocked incoming calls from them. That should teach them a lesson. I chuckled, waiting for a call from the other two. However, I never got a call from Lisa. It's been about a month since Mike and I divorced. I think Mike's gonna call soon. I checked the calendar. Today was the end of the month. If all went well, Mike should call today. As I pondered this, I received a text on my phone. It's here! The text was an invitation from Mike. Luckily, it was a Sunday and I was off work. I headed to the rendezvous point, excitedly. I have a hunch about what Mike's been talking about. The real issue is how Mike will react when he finds out the truth. As I entered the meetup spot, a cafe, Mike was already there. Sorry for the wait. With a warm smile, I took the seat opposite Mike. I noticed Lisa sitting next to Mike. I stared hard at Lisa, which clearly made her uncomfortable, prompting her to speak up. Stop staring at me like that. Oh, I apologize. So, why are you here? It's a big deal for our family's finances. Lisa frowned. It looked like she was pretty pissed. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have the motivation to get back at her. I murmured to myself. Soon, when I glanced at Mike, he hesitated a bit before speaking. Hey, I got a call from the real estate agent. You know anything about it? Real estate agent? What could it be? As I tilted my head, Lisa looked even more irritated. Pointing at me, Lisa said, You know something, don't you? Just admit it. Well, even if you say so. I pretended to be confused. Mike then leaned in slightly. The agent was going on about the rent. But we own our house. Right. So, I told them they got it wrong, but then they threatened to sue me. Mike tapped the table with his fingers. He seemed quite agitated, so I decided to come clean. Did you make sure to deposit the living expenses? Huh? Yeah, I did. You're lying. If you had, this wouldn't have happened. Hearing that, Mike flinched. With a smile, I explained the real deal. The rent they're talking about is for Martha's house. It should have been deducted from the bank book I gave you. Wait. We own our house. We shouldn't have to pay any rent. Well, Martha sold the house. So now, it's no longer yours. Both Mike and Lisa looked confused by my words. So, I decided to explain it all from the beginning. Some time ago, when Martha decided to go to a nursing home, there was one major issue. Her monthly pension would cover the regular costs, but she couldn't afford the initial fees. So, I suggested a leaseback to Martha. With a leaseback, she wouldn't have to move and would get a lump sum. But, she would need to pay rent. That's why I used the $500 you put in the house for the rent. What about the living expenses then? I was covering all of it. By the way, it's $2,000 a month. Mike and Lisa were shocked. If you'd kept paying the living expenses, it would have been deducted as rent, and that would have been the end of it. But if you understand, make sure to deposit it promptly. And keep doing so. Seeing me smile, Mike started to panic. Something seemed off, and eventually, Mike confessed. Actually, my company went under. What? Why? Well, the thing is. Mike struggled to find his words. Then, Lisa, looking quite angry, pointed at Mike. It's because he cheated and was splurging on another woman. That's why the company went bankrupt. According to Lisa, Mike was using company funds to lavish gifts on his mistress. This eventually led to the company's bankruptcy. But he couldn't admit this to me. So, they hoped Daniel's income would help and called Daniel and his wife to stay at their family home. It's all your fault. It's not like that. I didn't. What do you mean it's Jennifer's fault? Stop blaming others. Both you and your son. Lisa's anger exploded. Eventually, they started arguing, so I quietly left the cafe. After that, both Mike and Daniel looked for new jobs. But it wasn't easy. As the deadline to pay the rent approached, they had no choice but to work part-time at a convenience store. However, Daniel couldn't stand being bossed around by younger students and quit soon after. Meanwhile, Mike, being teased for being in his 50s, stopped showing up for work. In the end, They both borrowed money from some shady lenders and were forced to work on a fishing boat to repay the debt. I heard they're up north catching crabs now. Lisa quickly gave up on the two of them. She left the house and initially returned to her parents' home. However, debt collectors came there too, and now she's apparently working hard in a bar. As for me, I'm enjoying living alone. I visit Martha from time to time and lead a fulfilling life. Martha often asks if I'm going to remarry, but I'm not in the mood right now. However, there's one staff member at the nursing home that has caught my eye. Martha seems to have noticed this, but I hope she just observes for a little while longer.